Biden to me is like having a flashlight with a dying battery and going for a long hike in the woods. It is not going to work out. It's not going to make it.
You have Joe Rogan here. That was an old clip that the president tweeted out, so it's getting a lot more attention. Joe Rogan, who's a Democrat, or I guess people would say he's an independent, but he liked Bernie Sanders, so he's clearly a man ideologically of the left. Who does do an entertaining show, and I think is respectful to conservatives on his show, and so I think Joe Rogan is often somebody who's worth listening to. But he saw exactly what we're dealing with Joe Biden early on. That was an older clip. Joe Biden's a flashlight you're taking into the woods that's running out of batteries. You never know when all of a sudden it's going to be done, and then where are you? But the Democrats don't care, because what was the alternative? They didn't have a big enough name in the stable, so to speak. They didn't have a dynasty player to go up against Trump. So Biden was the closest thing they had, a two-time VP who served in the Obama administration, has very good numbers with black Democrat primary voters. So they figured, okay, I guess he's our guy, even though nobody thought he was our guy before. But many of us haven't forgotten that he was a deeply unimpressive option who also, you must remember, has foreign policy as one of his calling cards, and he has been terrible on foreign policy issues, absolutely awful for a very long time. Donald Trump got nominated for a Nobel Prize by some Swedish member of parliament or something. I don't know. They're saying he's a guy on the far right.
Norwegian,
thank you. Swedish, Norwegian, whatever. Potato, Sweden, Norway. But Trump got nominated for a Nobel Prize, and of course the libs are all completely, incensed by this. He didn't get it. He got nominated. Obama got a Nobel Prize for doing nothing. Nothing. For showing up. It was embarrassing. Even for Obama, I think at some level it was embarrassing. Trump has actually presided over no escalations, major escalations of wars, no new wars started, relative peace and prosperity here in the homeland, put aside the COVID situation for this foreign policy discussion. And they hate him. Oh, and also the UAE-Israel peace agreement, which was some good diplomatic stuff. I mean, guys, the UAE is a small country. It's a step in the right direction. I know everyone's supposed to think that this is a huge deal. It's a good deal for Israel and the UAE. I don't know how much I'm generally more concerned with. America put this forward. Okay, fine. But Trump at least did something worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize, you could argue. And he's also now announcing that he's going to dramatically reduce troop levels in Iraq, which is something that I've been calling for a long time. Let's be very clear, though. Let me be clear, as Obama used to say. Let's be very clear. Trump is doing this in advance of the election to try to keep a promise. If he is successful in this, if he does, in fact, reduce troops in Iraq and in Iraq specifically, although he's trying for Afghanistan as well, there will probably be some increased instability. There will be violence. So we need to know this, because the second he does something and then anything goes wrong, the media is going to jump all over him, say he's reckless, say he doesn't understand foreign policy or whatever. No, we should make these decisions knowing that things aren't going to be perfect in Iraq and Afghanistan after we leave. They may get substantially worse, but it's not our problem. That's the shift. That's the change in thinking here that Trump is supposed to represent. That's the future, I would hope, of the Republican Party, too. We're not doing wars just to do wars. We're not fighting in foreign countries because a bunch of think tank academics have some theory about how it's going to spread and, to a flowering of democracy across the region and all this stuff. Nope. In fact, that ideology, that combined with the cyclical recession of 2008 put in place by a decades-long government intervention in the housing markets, but those two things together brought us the Obama administration for 8 years. Right. One of the big differentiators you will recall between Obama and Hillary had voted for the Iraq War, and Obama wasn't in office then, so he got to say, see, you voted for it, I didn't. But troop cuts in Iraq, I think, would be the right move for Trump. I think that's the right thing to do. And then you also, another thing I wanted to get to while we have time, the college quarantine situation. You have all these people who are, all these people in the media who are completely freaked out about how they're unable, these colleges are having all these positive COVID cases, and they're unable to find ways to separate kids. They're putting kids in really bad situations because of this. They're doing real quarantines on campus where you have to stay in a certain place. You can't be in the normal dorm. They've learned nothing. They've learned nothing from everything that we have seen during this pandemic, meaning the authorities, whoever they may be. That these schools somehow think that they're going to be able to separate people and not get COVID cases spreading across their campus is absurd. It's absurd. But New York Times here has a piece, college quarantine breakdowns leave some at risk. And we're all supposed to be so worried about this. We're supposed to be so concerned. College kids are at very little risk from this disease. Colleges are trying to isolate students who have the coronavirus or have been exposed to it, but they're running into a host of problems. Here's how the piece goes. Across the United States, colleges that have reopened for in-person instruction are struggling to contain the rapid-fire spread of coronavirus among tens of thousands of students by imposing tough social distancing rules and piloting an array of new technologies like virus tracking apps. But perhaps their most complex problem has been what to do with students who test positive for the virus or come into contact with someone who has. To this end, many campuses are subjecting students to one of the oldest infection control measures known to civilization, quarantine. They've kicked kids out of school for inadequate social distancing. They have actually kicked kids out of school for that. This is so stupid. How many college students have you heard of since they've reopened now for weeks? How many college students have you heard of getting hospitalized or dying? I mean, there might be one or two. This is in the whole country. And yet they're talking about thousands and thousands of cases on campuses. Yeah, because young people can deal with this. Why do we have to all act like this is a great worry? We have learned this lesson, but they won't learn any lessons. We have seen how this plays out, but they don't care. Can you imagine this? I mean, my college dorm freshman year was like a penal colony. It was gross. I can't imagine what the special quarantine dormitory is going to be like. Quote, many public and private colleges have set aside special dormitories or are renting off-campus apartments or hotel rooms to provide isolation beds for infected students and separate quarantine units for the possibly sick. The general strategy has been supported by public health officials like Anthony Fauci, the nation. Oh, God, that guy is the worst. No good ideas. Never has good judgment. I mean, I wish Trump would fire him, but all the libs would completely lose their minds if he did that. At the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, Brianna Hayes developed a fever after a week at school, went to campus health services, was immediately assigned to a quarantine dorm with students with virus risks. 2 days later, they informed her that she had tested positive, would need to move again to a COVID-19 isolation dorm, but there was no university staff in the dorm to help sick students and no elevator. Feverish and exhausted from the virus, she made 4 trips up and down the stairs to move her bedding and other belongings. During her week in isolation, no one from the university came to check in on her. End quote. Does that sound like that's a good policy? It does if you're a moron. If you're a total moron, this makes sense. Like Fauci. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.